Steve Wolfe is an artist interested in the tradition of trompe-l'oeil. All of this work, evinces a sort of real sense of craft and ability, I think. It's often funny when people encounter contemporary art. Many times the idea is that anybody could do it. People always say, my child could do that. And this, I think, is quite the opposite. It's a very slow, very painstakingly rendered work that we're looking at here. And essentially, we're looking at drawings of books and records that are actually drawn with every single minute detail you could possibly imagine. There is a history of handling books. Of course, now we're in the age of Kindles, but there is a certain quality that there is to be had when you handle books and live with books. And Steve is really interested in bringing out those qualities. So he's not just drawing an illustration of a book cover, but he's drawing an illustration of a book cover that has been lived with, that has been used by somebody. So you see these sort of cracks and creases inside the books that are rendered in two-dimensional drawings. And the same goes with the records. In this case, he's using the records, and you can see actual handprints on some of them that are drawn on there. You can see every single groove within inside the record, and it really is a wonder. I think, in our contemporary climate, where we have so much film and video is intricate part of all contemporary art installations, to see something that has been made in such a crafty fashion and such a slow fashion is almost like an anomaly. Slowness. I hope that people come into the gallery and slow down a little bit. One of my favorites, though, actually is this piece that is the first piece, in a way, chronologically within this exhibition, which is a notebook. And it's not any one specific book, not a record, but an actual notebook that he has rendered every single detail of. And there are really no other defining characteristics of it. It's the kind of book that you would find easily in a art supply store. It's a small presentation, but we're actually looking at work that goes back to the late 80s. So we're covering a long period of time, and it gives you a sense of how painstakingly each one of these pieces is created. For him, it was really about showing the different sides. So you have a narrative that is drawn from the notebook, which is a sort of open-ended story, that one that invites us to create our own stories on, to the books that have a very important place in his own life. And so he was interested in that biographical content, but he also, I think, wants us to take them each as individual objects and as individual drawings, and that it wasn't about telling any specific story. So what you have here is a selection of books, a selection of records that are close and important to him, but don't override the fact of you enjoying each and every piece. In terms of its ability to work with other parts of the collection, it's really interesting for me to see the show in this gallery. Of course, the modern art galleries are just down the hallway from us, and Steve has a very close relationship with the artist Robert Gober, who has a large sculpture down the hall in the modern art galleries. So it was interesting to see the work in that sort of dialogue. And I think with Gober, likewise, Steve is interested in that tradition of trompe-l'oeil, but also interested in a more recent tradition, which is a history of surrealism, and how things are, not exactly what we think they are. And that's certainly what happens here in the work. Back there you have a big sculptural sink by Robert Gober, and here you have the records. I mean, these things that we encounter as almost common everyday objects in a way. So they're both interested in, I think, a really interesting space between the real and the sort of surreal. There's another work back there that also plays particularly well, which is the comb by Via Sirmans, that big, huge comb, which she herself actually took after a painting by Rene Magritte. So Steve is also very much interested in how his work relates to other aspects of art and art history. And it's something that Steve has talked about, is that over the course of looking at art over the last 20 years, his work often gets compared to others who have dealt with books and who have dealt with records in a format that is somewhat biographical. In this case, Katai has done these prints of covers of books. And so you have a completely different selection of books by a British artist from an older generation than Steve, but we have the opportunity to talk about the work together. So I'm really interested to see the way that these two installations play off of each other when they're up together, and then we'll bring people to talk about this kind of work for one night in January.